They were tested to the extreme. Their mission: to rid Malaysia of the communist insurgents using all means possible.
This is a guerrilla warfare. It is not a conventional warfare.
It's a game with the highest stakes.
Kill or to be killed.
The communists show no mercy.
Tikam dia tengok, biji mata air keluar.
Peluru tu macam oteh di atas kepala.
An elite force, highly capable in guerrilla-style tactics, was established in 1969 to counter the communist insurgency.
We wanted to work as a small team, but a very effective unit.
Silent and deadly. They moved like ghosts in the dense tropical jungle. They were known as VAT69. Their operations were always veiled in secrecy. Spending most of their lives navigating the dense jungles of Malaysia, their contribution to the war effort was largely unknown. "40 years ago, they were the pioneering group of young soldiers that changed the future of Malaysia's special forces. The 17th of June, 1968. A Malaysian police field force makes a routine patrol along the Malaysia-Thailand border. Following a 12-year communist insurgency that left thousands dead, they are on the lookout for any communist guerrillas at the border. In their bid to take over Southeast Asia, the communists have turned the region into a bloody battlefield, most notably Indochina. But security forces in Malaysia believe the situation is under control. They couldn't have been more wrong. With meticulous planning and military precision, a group of communist insurgents storm the police field force trucks. The attack is swift and merciless, and a killing spree ensues. 14 field force policemen die on the spot, and many others are seriously injured in what becomes known as the Crow Massacre. 10 days earlier, the Communist Party of Malaya had issued a fiery message to its members to hold high the great red banner of the armed struggle and valiantly march forward. The message was published and broadcast even in China. It lifted the spirit of communist guerrillas in Malaysia to start another round of revolution. Senior Assistant Commissioner A. Navaratnam remembers the murders in Crow.
They shot them at random. When they knew they were survivors, they just shot. So the rest who survived pretended to be dead.
Sub-Inspector Abdul Rahman recalls the horror of seeing the slain bodies of the Crow victims.
Bolehkah dah mati kena tembak, kena mati dikelakkan lagi, kebaluan dipotongkan lagi?
He was given a heavy task of breaking the news to the next of kin.
Anak bini semua dijemput datang mentengok suami mereka. No. Dalam surau tersebut. Yang saya tengok 3 orang isteri mereka yang tak keluar air mata setitik pun. Saya lihat sendiri, alhamdulillah. Macam mana dia bersabar, iman dia punya kuat.
It was an ominous sign that the Communist Party of Malaya had returned to its murderous ways. In the earlier communist uprising from 1948 until 1960, a period known as the First Emergency, British and Malayan troops fought tooth and nail with thousands of communist terrorists wanting to take over the country. The Crow Massacre was the beginning of a brand new multi-stage offensive by a re-energized group of communist insurgents, hoping to topple the new government of Malaysia, barely 10 years after its independence from the British. Malaysia's strategic location in the heart of Southeast Asia was a perfect place for the Communist Party to spread its wings.
Their intention was to incurse back into Malaysia and do the same type of havoc which they did in the first emergency.
After the Crow massacre, the Malaysian security forces had to act quickly. The insurgents had developed a skill of creating small pockets of bloody havoc before melting invisibly back into the jungle. For the Malaysian government, the best way to fight these hit-and-run tactics was to form a special jungle force trained in guerrilla warfare and strategy. A nationwide search began for potential jungle warriors. The new breed of fighters were to be called Very Able Troopers 69, or VAT69. VAT69 had only one task: to eliminate the threat of communist insurgents in Malaysia once and for all. The newly formed troopers would be the ultimate in counterinsurgency warfare. With huge trees and thick, dense foliage reducing the effective range of weapons, the focus shifted from typical military tactics to close-quarter fighting and ambushes. The training centered on avoiding detection and short, sharp bursts of gunfire called double tap, a technique developed specifically for jungle confrontations. Abdul Rahman remembers signing up.
Saya tak bayang apa akan berlaku dalam hutan. Tahu, tak ada cita-cita, tak ada angan. Saya nak khidmat kerana agama, bangsa dan negara. Itu yang penting dalam hati saya. Mana hantar sekalipun, saya pergi.
For Sergeant Major Hamza, his joining was more personal.
Abang saya sendiri, dia jungle squad tu. Jungle squad dia ambush di komunis, dia kena granat. Jadi dia meninggal. Jadi ada juga hati tu.
After successfully signing up, the new recruits had to endure a punishing training schedule.
Pertama-tama di segi kita punya kesihatan lah. Itu penting. Jasmani kita, kekuatan kita, fikiran kita, mata kita, telinga kita, semua nak kena up to date.
Kami kena panjat Gunung Berincang, dibekalkan pasir 30 pound dan turun. Dia tujuan itu untuk ambil masa.
Those who passed the early selection moved to the next level. And the Malaysian government could not have chosen better trainers to test them. Used extensively and successfully during the first emergency, they brought in the British Special Air Service, better known as the SAS. Sergeant Major Hamza remembers his first trip to the jungle training camp.
Nak pergi ke jungle camp tu memang seksa. Dia orang kata good morning, bukit good morning itu nak daki dia tu. Memang orang kata bertongkat lah. Senjata tu jadi tongkat. Sampai dia camp pula tu, dia duduk, dia bagi kami tempat duduk. Nak ambil air, turun mau pergi 40 minit ke tengah jam, turun ambil air. Nak daki dia tahu. Dia bagi kami endurance, tekanan.
The SAS immediately honed in on the single most important aspect of their training: stealth.
Saya tengok dalam latihan tu, pertama tu taktik bergerak. Bergerak lautan itu yang penting. Makanan cerita tadi kan, makanan yang tak berbau. Masak barang-barang pun tak tinggal. Taktik perjalanan lautan dirahsia. Tidak boleh cerita siapa-siapa pun.
Following the training in stealth came the serious business of weapons handling. To make things as realistic as possible, the SAS added a new and rather unnerving dimension to the young recruits' training: live bullets.
Latihan tembak mesti selalu. Mana kita dah biasa dengan letupan ni kan, dia tak berapa takut. Terus dia kata, up, terus tembak, tumbum. Up, tumbum. Up, tumbum. Double tap semua. Latihan pada sini yang kita ni sekali berani. Ada juga latihan-latihan yang mana dia buat musuh serang kita.
Dia training, dia melatih kita betul-betul untuk memahirkan kita dalam hutan. Memang tak ada tujuan mendera.
After 3 months of grueling SAS training, the pioneer troopers of VAT69 had been transformed from part-time recruits to highly trained jungle fighters. They were now ready to take on the communists and the notorious jungle. The Crow massacre in June 1968 was a wake-up call to the Malaysian security forces. It was a stark reminder that the communist insurgents were still lurking along the Malaysia-Thai border, and a new wave of attacks was imminent. The attack in Crow had triggered the formation of a new group of commandos called VAT69. The 69ers, as they were also known, were molded by the British SAS into guerrilla fighters, highly trained in jungle operations. 30-year-old Assistant Superintendent of Police Zabri Abdul Hamid was a pioneer squadron leader of VAT69. Zabri led his men in many initial duties to conduct reconnaissance on the communist movements, together with the Malaysian Police Special Branch and the armed forces.
Semua fort-fort dalam Semenanjung ni, dia biasa duduk, dia jadi sebagai fort commander.
In order to control the country, the communists needed to dominate strategic routes into peninsular Malaysia. These routes would allow them to slip into the jungle fringes and the villages.
We want to plot the CT incursion routes into our country, right from Selangor right up to Kelantan. It's such a big border, but we have to take time to map up this.
Communist insurgents had learned to survive in the remote jungle by skillfully stashing food away from the untrained eye. These supplies were known as food dumps and often included rice, sugar, salt, and canned food. Smoked elephant meat was also a speciality, as the tough meat could last for a few years if sealed properly. To cripple the enemy's ability to survive long-term in the jungle, it was imperative to search and destroy the communist food rations. But detecting the enemy through triple canopy rainforest from the air was virtually impossible. So there was only one answer: send in the ground troops. Maneuvering around the jungle was a dark, hot, and extremely humid experience for the 69ers. With 3 layers of trees cutting off almost all sunlight, the jungle's hostility was magnified by infested swamps, dangerous wildlife, and continuously heavy tropical rains. When the triple canopy did open up, the vines and vegetation became so thick it would take the commandos 2 hours to cover 50 meters. To have any chance of finding enemy weapons and food dumps, VAT69 needed someone with exceptional tracking skills. The Aborigines, or Orang Asli, the original native people of peninsular Malaysia, were known as excellent hunters and trackers.
In a small unit like this, where you move in only six people, the tracking element is very important. So the tracker goes, something else can happen.
Tracker ni bukannya setakat mencari kesan, dia juga akan mengesan musuh. Akan mengesan kiri kanan tu ada tak musuh buat serang endap dan sebagainya. So orang nombor satu ni adalah penjamat bagi Petro tu.
Of the many trackers who joined VAT69, one particular Orang Asli stood out: Sergeant Major Apot Saad. Apot, who had spent his life growing up in the Semai tribe in Perak, was highly sensitive to the rhythm and pulse of the jungle.
He can even tell you whether the track belongs to a male or a female.
Ciri-ciri tracker tu lengkap pada diri dia. Hidung dia, deria bau dia, dia pendengaran dia, penglihatan yang tajam. Dia memang teliti, Apot dia.
Masa tu kami jejak musuh. Sejak memang dah jumpa lah. Memang pasti musuh. Kesan betul-betul hujan petang tu. Jadi kesan hilang. Kemudian apot ni ialah apa kata orang telah dianugerahkan. Telah jumpa balik tu. Walaupun hujan telah hakiskan dia punya jejak-jejak tu.
With Apot's excellent tracking skills on board, the 69ers embarked on their first seek and destroy mission, Operation Sukat. Their target, a network of food dumps covering an area the size of Singapore. The 69ers had to perform an open tactical maneuver, since the intended location was tapioca farms alongside the fringes of the jungle. In an area full of communist sympathizers, that meant disguising themselves as land surveyors.
Okay, you will go into this area, Jalo. Tapioca plantations are there. Pretend to do a survey.
Jamil recalls Zabri's covert tactics to gain information in their target area.
Sampai perangkat itu dia nak tengok ada pergerakan musuh kat itu, sampai perangkat dia terbang tu buat trek di atas bukit. Pakai parang betul-betul. Trek tu kita buat tu macam topo lah, sukat buat dia punya trek topo lah. Penat juga lah yang tu pun, walaupun menyamar kan, tapi penat lah. Mulut dia pun bising. Tujuan dia bising tu supaya kalau ada musuh tu yang sebenarnya, musuh tahu dia bukan pasal keselamatan, ini orang topo.
After capturing and interrogating 2 communist agents, insurgent activity in the area was confirmed.
One fellow tried to run, he was shot in the leg. The other fellow tried to run, but then he saw his brother hurt. He decided to remain. Both were arrested. Lorry sent to the police station in Sungai Siput. Both the guys were also taken there for interrogation.
For most of the 69ers, it was the first time they'd face a real enemy.
Dengar bunyi dah tahu dah memang betul, bunyi drum. Diorang ni tak tahu kata kita. Masa tu kita memang pergi, itulah macam mana kita belajar. Seberapa slow yang boleh kita pergi.
But as they weaved their way through the undergrowth, bending branches aside and squeezing through obstacles, an insurgent appeared out of nowhere. Without waiting for orders, Sergeant Jamil opened fire.
Bila tembak tu, prung kita bunyi, masa tu arwah Zabri semua belum sampai lagi ya. Orang tu mungkin mengusuk lagi. Dia orang baru tahu mungkin target dekat situ. Bila tembakan yang pertama bunyi saja, semua dia orang di belakang pun dia orang bantai jugalah.
And an intense firefight started. A severe gun battle ensued, which lasted 10 minutes. At the end of the firefight, 1 communist was killed and the rest fled behind the hill. But Zabri was furious at the new recruit for not following strict orders.
Dia pun masuk dalam, dia sampai kat saya. Kena. Kamu gopoh lah, dia kata macam tu. Yang saya ingat dia tegur saya lah.
For most of the squad, it was a baptism of fire.
That kill really inspired us. And of course, during that firefight, a lot of things happened. One fellow got up and wanted to charge. These guys who stood up, they became the best in the unit.
Nevertheless, the communists' attempt to hoard a large supply had been foiled by VAT69 troopers.
Took away 18 drums, 1/8, loaded with rice, sugar, salt, and some cooking oil as well.
Despite their first victory, the real confrontation between the 69ers and the communist insurgents would be in the bamboo area. In the heart of the tropical rainforest known for its ruthless environment that could weaken even the toughest of men. After its formation in 1969, the VAT69 commandos relentlessly pursued the communist insurgents throughout Malaysia. But the jungle fighting skills of the 69ers were tested to the limit when they started to enter the bamboo area. Navigating through towering trees 60 meters high, conditions for tracking the enemy became much more extreme. Wild animals, swamps, and impenetrable jungle dominated the terrain.
Yang paling takut, tapi jarang jumpa pak belang ni, tapak saya jumpa, tapi gajah biasa.
And with humidity levels at a constant 90%, dehydration and exhaustion hit the troops hard. But more than that, the bamboo area was vast.
You can't cover the whole area. Just impossible. Even half of that area you can't cover. Because I've been right through. It's massive and rugged.
To the communists, however, the bamboo route was a precious superhighway of food and weapons between Malaysia and their HQ in Thailand. And they would protect it with their lives.
For the communists, it is a place for them to build up their movement, their operation, to build up. For us, we have to disrupt them, to stop them from expanding towards the local population.
Stretching over 200 kilometers along the mountainous backbone of the Banjaran Titiwangsa, the steep mountains, ravines, and thick jungle made it very difficult for the 69ers to hunt their enemies. Even for an Aborigine master tracker like Apot, the bamboo area was tough going.
Kawasan buluh lah. Kawasan buluh itu paling sukar bagi kita nak bergerak. Pertama sekali yang cepat kita kena miang buluh. Bila kena miang buluh tu malam tak boleh tidur. Biar kita nak bergerak tu dah macam tersekat. Tak boleh pantas. Kita tak boleh nak senyap.
Kawasan buluh ni kita kena menyusup. Menyusup tu memang kekuatan pinggang, kekuatan itu semua ni diperlukan lah. Menyusup hampir 1 kilometer. Menyusup bawah buluh. Trek dia tu dia satu trek untuk sampai.
Ishak Yahya was a troop commander at the height of VAT69's Operation Bamboo. 30 years later, he still remembers the notoriety of the area.
Well, the bamboo area, these are very deep, mountainous, deep inside the jungle. You can hardly see anybody moving 50 meters away from you. It's a place where you can hide and shoot and scoot.
One step at a time, eyes scanning through the branches, finger on the trigger, the young soldiers knew the kill zone was much closer than anything they had encountered before. To the communists and the 69ers, the bamboo area became the ultimate battleground for their game of cat and mouse.
We meet a lot of vacant enemy resting places, camps and resting places. We found their food dump, and based on that food dump, we built up an ambush in that area.
But the communists had extremely capable trackers of their own, known as trailblazers. Paul Keong, working undercover as a communist agent at that time, describes the duty of a trailblazer.
The first man will be a point man, where I think he is always a very alert person. They will appoint a person who is very sharp and very alert and very experienced in looking for tracks, traces of security forces.
Moving in a single file of between 3 to 5 meters long, it was the last person's duty to clear up any signs of the communists' presence, like footprints along the track.
So if it doesn't sweep the tracks properly, and then the security forces might be able to pick up the tracks.
But the communists, still considering the bamboo area to be a safe haven, occasionally let their guards slip.
We heard some shooting inside the jungle where the terrorists go on for hunting and, very long distance. Sometimes you hear them shooting, heard them shooting maybe about 6, 7 o'clock in the night. So we conducted a tracking exercise then.
The 15th of March, 1954, Zabri ordered Apot to scout the area and find the communist threat.
kalau kita dah menghampiri dia, sudah dekat misalnya, ada rasa yang tidak menyenangkan lah, macam bau pakaian diorang. Ini macam dekat klinis ini, sebab kita tahu bau klinis macam mana kan.
Apabila kami dah faham jejak lebih kurang 2 jam, Apot terjumpa kesan musuh. Paling baru, tak sampai pun 10 minit.
After making a huge loop by climbing a small ridge, Apot moved in closer to take a look. He knew the assault would not be easy.
Klinis duduk tempat yang liring, yang susah kita hampiri. Yang kalau kita nak rapat dia pun, mesti dia nampak kita dulu. Daripada sudut mana pun kita datang, mesti nampak kita dulu. Sebab tempat dia okey, tapi di luar dia tu semak samun yang boleh tarik akar paut kat pokok.
Having discovered the enemy's camp, the 69ers strategized their assault plan. They would charge in extended lines, center, left and right flank, the 69ers' signature tactical formation in fighting the enemy.
Kami terus masuk nak buat hendak dia besok pagi sebab nyata tu petang. Tapi duka cita, yang 2 komunis tu dia baru balik. Dia ternampak kami pada belakang.
Zabri was there. I was deep behind. When the enemy came from behind, instead of us assaulting the camp, the enemy shot at us first.
It was an unexpected encounter for both sides. The 69ers' position was compromised within seconds. All of a sudden, they came under heavy enemy fire.
Musuh lebih kurang di antara 30 hingga 40. Kami 9 orang. Kami di bawah bukit.
It was an assault gone wrong. Quickly regrouping, the 69ers had to turn the fight around.
Semasa bertembak, tembak yang pertama tu kami tak berapa kuat sangat. Tembakan yang kedua masa kami nak naik bukit tu, dia tak mencabar kami, dia panggil nombor 9 nak lawan naik. Memang kami naik.
Terus naik, buat extended line. Terus sang marah.
And after 10 minutes of intense fighting, the communists melted back into the jungle, leaving behind a large amount of rice, sugar, as well as medical supplies. Ishak remembers an interesting discovery during this operation.
There are stones barricaded in the stream, like a dam, small dam. But the stone was moisture, very slippery.
Apot examined them more closely.
And he said, it is not stone. And he looked down and he found that it is the elephant meats.
With jungle temperatures soaring as high as 35 degrees Celsius, it was a practice to keep food fresh by hiding it in the river. For the 69ers, it suggested an enemy camp must be near. Overall, it was a narrow but important victory.
Kami dapat kawan kami itu, termasuk senjata, makanan, termasuklah daging gajah yang telah disalai.
After 58 days of deep jungle tracking, the VAT69 commandos captured and destroyed a chain of food dumps and 21 enemy resting places in the remote Singor Valley. The 69ers' mission to beat back the communists was proving successful. The communists realized they were being hunted not by any security forces, but by a guerrilla force known to them as Lok Kao, or 69. However, in their continuing struggle to capture Malaysia, the communists had other plans. VAT69's relentless pursuit of the communists in the bamboo area had paid off. They were now a force to be reckoned with. Underground spy Paul Keong remembers the communists' view of the 69ers.
Among all the security forces group, to them, they say the 69 are much better. Much better in the sense that they are more experienced in jungle warfare compared to the other units. And they are quite determined and committed.
To regain traction, the communists played their deadliest hand yet. Homemade mines.
Inside the jungle, there are places where you cannot negotiate anywhere else. You have to go through that point. That congruent because of the terrain. And that is a very likely, 100% sure, they will place a booby trap.
They will plant booby traps along routes where it's frequent by security forces. And when they are retreating from a firefight, they fear that the security forces will give a hot pursuit, then they'll plant the mines.
It was a tactic they deployed with devastating effect.
I think we were more scared of the booby traps than the rail fighting. Fighting, you can see the enemy. Here, you don't see the enemy.
Sergeant Major Hamza knows the agony of being hit by a booby trap.
Sampai di hospital, mereka tak dapat habis keluar lah. Satu, saya ingat di sini ada dua kecil. Tengah-tengah ni ada satu macam paku. Lepas tu di belakang ada satu. Di dekat tulang belakang ada satu lagi. Sampai sekarang lah, efek dia tu adalah sikit-sikit sakit.
In August 1975, a police field force boat with 4 personnel travelled along the Kenarong River towards VAT69 tactical headquarters at Fort Tapong. They were delivering foodstuffs and petrol to the 69ers.
Jadi kami dah buat ambush, dah nak masuk ke 3 bulan dah. Tak berjaya, musuh tak masuk ke situ. Jadi dah masa tu dah untuk nak tutup operasi dah. Jadi ration kami dah nak habis. Jadi sementara nak menunggu helikopter untuk mengambil kami, jadi kami perlukan supply lagi lah. Jadi terpaksa boatman hantar melalui boat.
When the boat did not arrive as expected, Squadron Commander Zabri Abdul Hamid knew something had gone wrong.
Petang lah, terdengar bunyi sayup aja bunyi letupan. Lepas tu sikit-sikit lah tembakan.
Itu arwah Zabri ni telah mengarahkan saya lah supaya menyiasat. Saya pun pergilah. Saya berjalan, saya ingat satu hari. Dalam perjalanan saya ke bawah, saya ni pos tapung ni atas sikit, Kuala Gerung bawah. Apabila cross sungai tu kami jumpa.
Bekas macam kawasan terbakar. Kawasan terbakar dan disyak di situlah.
10 kilometers from Fort Tapong, the abandoned boat was discovered, along with the bodies of 4 Field Force police commanders.
Satu mayat dalam air terikat dengan tangan dia, terikat jala. Satu mayat tu orang kata jumpa juga, badan dia penuh lah kena tembak. Satu lagi body di atas tu saya sendiri rescue lah.
The next day datang, kita selam lah dan dapatlah 4 mayat tu dapat dikeluarkan. Itu boatman.
They had been tortured to death. Zabri warned his men to be on full alert.
Sampai di Tapung dia pun terus bagi tahu saya, Hamzah, kamu besok, kamu mulai sekarang jangan buka boot. Mungkin orang kita akan bertempur.
The 69ers knew the enemy wanted to slip out of their grip before cutting north towards the Thailand border at Batong. The VAT69 commandos immediately split into 3 patrols, with 18 men searching high and low for traces of the enemy.
Pada 3 September 1975, kurang lebih pukul 3, masa kami turun daripada bukit, nak pergi kebenaran daripada arwah Tuan Zabri untuk nak ambil minum. Kami 3 patrol, itu 18 orang. Dan saya duduk ke belakang, duduk ketiga. Duduk yang pertama telah ternampak musuh.
The 18 troopers were caught in an intense firefight with almost 40 communist insurgents.
4 November, kami bertempur! Dia orang buat kan V-shape, terus serang kami. Dengan kuatan yang ada tu, dia orang, yang saya tahu dia gunakan 40 dan 60 mm mortar. Kiri dan kanan. Oh, memang hebat betul tu. Sebab kami cuma tak boleh nak bangun sebab dia punya peluru tu macam hujan lah.
Dan tembakan tu Tu adat cakap lah kalau kita panggung orang kena, Pak Din, kalau peluru tu macam putih di atas kepala, duk kena apa? Batang-batang buluh tu.
Utilizing grenade launchers and mortars, the communists pinned down the 69ers, hoping to force them to retreat.
Sebab Daud ni, dia pun jerit. Paling ingat, dia kata, mortar group marah, dia dummy kan. Nak beritahu oleh pihak musuh kita pun nak ada mortar kan.
Kami tidak ada mortar, kami gunakan mini grenade yang dibekalkan setiap seorang 5 biji.
After almost an hour of concentrated fire, the communists broke into splinter groups and fled, leaving weapons and supplies behind.
Masa bola-bola tembak tu, memang jelas suara ni kemudian jerit. Caw, caw.
Turun ke sungai. Itu saya dengar, tak berapa jelas. Dia kata turun ke sungai. Lepas tu tembakan pun dah kurang, pihak kami pun dah kurang.
With nightfall approaching, Zabri instructed his men to remain at the location for fear the enemy would return after sundown.
Saya berdoa bagi cepat siang. Nak bawa keluar ni anggota yang cedera ni, yang pertama, yang kedua kami boleh dapat jejak balik tu.
Searching through the firefight wreckage, it was clear that the enemy in front of them were responsible for the attack on their supply boat.
Kemudian terjumpa 2 senjata shotgun yang dirampas oleh komunis daripada boatman dan 2 mortar yang berukuran 40 dan 60 mm dan juga ration yang untuk dibekalkan kepada PPA yang di ambush tu.
With 2 of his men injured, Zabri led a re-energized charge to hunt down the enemy and headed towards Fort Tapong in Upper Perak.
Dia bagi nasihat lagi, jangan ikut track. Dia ulang, jangan ikut track. Udah, elak track, udah. Yang Ricky pertama, Sarjan Hamzah, tu grup dia orang 3-4 orang tu. Pergi dulu, cek berhati-hati.
After getting a report from the reconnaissance group, Zabri ordered his men to move in a single column.
Saya mengah-mengah tengah menjak bukit. Dan bertempur dia pun, saya buat tak peduli lah. Saya ikut nak belakang, saya nak ikut belakang lah. Biarlah dia berjalan depan. Elok sampai di tebing nak cross sungai, dia dah jerit sekali. Dia jerit, so dia kata, aku mau Hamzah mesti ada belakang. Jadi saya pun berlari lah pergi. Lepas tu dia merembak satu mortar tu. Sambil tu turunlah ke sungai, dia turun sungai, saya pun turun, saya pun cakap dengan dia, bisik, yop. Seberang sana saya tak jam member bertrap. Saya dah cek sampai sini je, dia mengangguk tu kan.
After crossing the Kenarong River, Zabri gave the all clear for his team to follow. But within seconds, disaster happened.
Tengah sungai, saya dengar satu letupan yang kuat juga.
Tom, saya tak nampak dia kena. Tapi orang kata dengar suara je.
1 minit lepas bunyi tu, dia buat call saya. Dia buat panggil medik.
Bila meletup, saya ingat ambush. Saya pun down, campak motor, down pergi ke tebing, dengar. Baru dia panggil saya. Hamzah, dia kata, aku dah kena dah. Saya pun pergi, tengok. Dia tengah pegang kaki dia.
Zabri had strayed onto a fake trail and stepped on a communist landmine. Zabri had strayed onto a fake trail and stepped on a communist landmine.
Sampai tempat dia, pada tengok tulang kaki dia ni, memang ni dia kira pecah.
Zabri was losing a massive amount of blood. Rahman, the team's medic, tried frantically to save the boss.
Sambil rawatan, sambil otak saya jalan. Saya ambil cari kayu untuk
Aduh, bos. Bila kita pergi cari dia orang, saya beritahu keselamatan. Tapi cara cakap macam orang macam ni. Bagi syarat lah. Bagi syarat ya, buat ni, naik. Kontak November.
To evacuate Zabri quickly, the 69ers desperately needed a helicopter landing point. But in the dense jungle, they were few and far between. Zabri's survival became a race against time.
We crossed the river and walked through the river and walked through by the side of the river, up the mountain, down the mountain.
But it was too late. Zabri died along the way. It was tough for the 69ers to move on without their trusted leader. But with the insurgents still at large, the VAT69 commandos could not abort the mission in the bamboo area.
Terpaksa terima hakikat, iaitu dia telah yang pergi terpaksa pergi, yang hidup terpaksa teruskan tugas.
Attack, minta airstrike bom, dua biji tabuan. Memang macam perang lah. Lepas tu bum letup, tabuan datang.
I stayed there for 2-3 days, and after that I did my operation, do up a follow-up when the things is cleared, and I realized that the enemy has gone back into the south of Thailand.
Everyone in VAT69 mourned the untimely death of the squadron commander, ASP Zabri Abdul Hamid. They had lost a beloved leader and a dear friend.
Sebelum dia meninggal, dia dah tulis dekat pokok. Jarang sangatlah kita nak tinggalkan kesan-kesan ni. Dia tulis dalam bahasa Inggeris, in the war, there is no room for pity, kill or to be killed.
Salhuddin remembers the propaganda announcement about the incident on the Communists' Revolution Voice radio.
Juruhebah Komunis tu, dia beritahu kita telah bertempur dengan pihak musuh. Seorang pegawai tinggi dia telah gugur di medan pertempuran dan musuh bertemperan lari di bawah kepulan asap.
In reality, it was the communists who fled the scene and not the 69ers. Hamza, who is also Zabri's nephew, is honored to have spent the rare moments with Zabri before his tragic death.
Dia tak pernah nak bawa saya. Dia selalu tak tahu lah. Saya pun mungkinlah orang lain panggil dia bos, saya tak pernah saya panggil Yop ya. Saya buat pada kecil dah panggil dia Yop kan. Jadi dia pun memang tak ada rapat dengan saya, tak ada orang kata kita ada sekena-mena kan, orang kata nampak sangat lah kan.
After Operation Bamboo, VAT69 commandos had more experience in jungle warfare, and they knew the enemy tactics well. But the price they had to pay was losing a valuable jungle fighter and a dear friend, ASP Zabri.
He is a brave man. He knows about the jungle terrain. He can fight against the enemy. We can depend on him. You go inside the jungle together with him and you have all the confidence.
He had jungle craft with him. He knew the jungle very well. Very good at booby traps. All-rounder.
My own flesh and blood kata. Saya punya darah dan daging. 69 ni kata. Tak boleh dipisahkan kata. Dari situ kita tengok semangat dia. Yang betul-betul ini jiwa 69. Jiwa komando bukan 69, jiwa komando ni.
Zabri's death was a rallying call for the troopers of VAT69. They were more determined to beat the communists once and for all. A continuous bombardment by VAT69 and other Malaysian security forces left the communists cornered and running out of options. They had no other choice but to fight their way back to their Thai HQ. After Operation Bamboo, the 69ers persistently tracked down the remnants of communists in other parts of Malaysia. In December 1989, 20 years after the formation of the very able Troopers 69, representatives from the Malaysian government and the Communist Party of Malaya, CPM, signed a peace agreement witnessed by Thai government representatives. Under the agreement, all armed activities between the Malaysian security forces and the Communist Party of Malaya would come to an end. The CPM would have to disband all of its armed units and destroy its weapons arsenal and the deadly booby traps scattered around Malaysia and South Thailand. For VAT69 pioneer troopers, the peace accord marked a new chapter in their personal mission to keep Malaysia safe.
Nak kata lega tak lega, tapi bila dalam pemikiran, bila komunis nak bangun semula. Sebab dia letak nyata, dia tak buang ideologi dia.
Walaupun aman, kita terpaksa berjaga-jaga. Sebab daripada segi keselamatan tu.
The elite commandos continue to serve Malaysia to this very day. They are equipped with better equipment and facilities, but they owe their status to a humble group of men who fought for real in the jungles of Malaysia 40 years ago.
Banggalah, tapi dalam bangga-bangga tu masih ragu-ragu tentang yang ada sekarang ni, sebab dia bila dah keadaan tak ada komunis, skill latihan tu diubah.
Kena bersedia daripada sekarang. Benda ni petingkat korang punya mengikut situasi semasa. Zaman saya dah berlalu.
There are about 300 men in the current elite force known as 69 Commando Battalion. They serve in a modern environment, but are still trained in jungle tactics. Even now, in peacetime, the new generation of 69ers continue to be inspired by the battle-hardened and brave pioneer troopers of VAT69.